welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show, guys, is an absolutely action-packed creep fest full of cryptid and strange goings-on deep way out in the boonies. I cannot thank you enough for the support, the advice, the love you guys have shown me over the last 10 months. We've just hit 3,000 subscribers, 3,000 family members, and I cannot wait to see what comes in the next few months. We have really cool things in store for you guys over the next couple of weeks and months. Should be another animation coming from Dogman Narratives. Keep an eye out for that. But without further ado, guys, I'm sure you've all been waiting as much as I have to drop this video. Let's get straight into tonight's story, which is entitled The LBL Type 3, Part 6. And a big shout out to Connie Sheldon, Jimbo Telegraphis, and Jesse Dillon, amongst some others. There was so many responses to suggestions and ideas. Cannot thank you guys enough. I've got loads in store for the next chapter. Yes, there will be another chapter. But without further ado, let's get straight into that. The sun rose early that morning, casting long, bright rays of light across the land. The birds and other fauna returning as it did so. Everything had this false normality to it, given the nightmare creatures that had been outside only a few hours previous. It wasn't long before the local authorities showed up in the distance, driving up our long driveway to the house, dust bellowing up from behind their vehicles. It was soon to be apparent that these were not the local sheriff department, but rather a government agency of sorts. The typical black SUVs with blackened out windows, no plates. 2 in total. As they approached, Dad instructed me to keep quiet, not to answer anything if they asked. "Okay, Dad," I said. As the cars approached, the brothers D and Riz, with Dad close behind, went out to the front porch and waited for whoever got out. 2 big black SUVs pulled up. 5 huge men got out of one at the rear. Taking a minute to scan the surrounding tree line and land before 2 more got out of the truck in front. We then opened the door for 2 other men. I could see that the 2 men who got out the last were nothing of the same size as the others. Obviously, they were in charge, and the others were simply the muscle. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" asked Dad, staring at one of the gorillas. "Yeah, if you're looking for some donuts, you got the wrong place," said Riz. D glanced into his brother with disapproval. "Come on now, fellas, I think it's us who can help you. Or maybe we can help each other," said the short, stub-nosed guy in the middle. The others remained silent, scanning the area as if looking or searching for something. "Oh, really?" said Dad. "And how might you be of any help to us?" "Mr. Monroe, sir." "Okay," said Dad. "So what can I do you for, Mr. Monroe?" "Well, we know you boys are having some issues with the local wildlife, and we know 4 or 5 hunters went into forest back there 3 nights ago. We've had reports last night, half a mile down the road here, of automatic gunshots and possibly explosives being used," said Monroe, looking questionably at the brothers and Dad. "Ha ha 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 ha!" Dad laughed and said, "So you boys thought you would roll up here, start trying to give us a shake-up and see what's up?" He continued, "I bet you want my men and me to help you traverse the dense dark land in that there ravine and surrounding forest, then find the hunters. Ha! Fat chance," he said with an obvious piss tone to his voice. He continued, "Yeah, there were some shots being fired last night. Heavy artillery and a definite. But explosives? I'm not so sure." As he said that, the officer glanced over his shoulder to the now scorched grass, still smouldering away in the morning light, a portion of smoke slowly drifting into the forest, almost like a signal for the men to follow. "I see," said Monroe. "Well, would you mind if my men had a little look around the place, especially down in that ravine, sir?" he asked with a tone of pure excitement. "I hope you know what you're getting yourselves into," said D. "Well, actually, I do mind, sir. I know you are here for those creatures. I tell you now, you and your men go into that forest. You won't come out. At least, not in one piece. You won't find them hunters. From what was heard last night, their ass is grass," said Dad. "Ha ha ha," laughed Monroe, joined by some of his men. "I see, sir. Well, I am just going to have to insist, and thank you, gentlemen, for your time. But we're going in. If we don't, what's, or rather, dear sir, who is going to stop them when they return for the boy?" he remarked, looking directly over to me as I sat with my mother on the steps of our decking. "Hang on, just a," said Dad, but was cut short by Monroe. "No, you hang on, sir. You hang on," said Monroe. "You need our help in this nightmare, and to be honest, we need yours. Nobody knows the land down there better than you. Your family will get full protection in a safe house. What do you say?" asked Monroe, almost as last chance deal. Dad looked at Dee and Riz, then over to Mother and I, throwing his hat to the dusty ground. "God damn it! You get my family out of here and to a safe place, but I want something else. First, I want your snaky little ass down there with us. Then, I want $20,000 in my wife's account by this evening. Lastly, when we get the Alpha, I want to be the one who puts a bullet through his head. Are we clear?" he said without any hesitation in his voice. As he was saying this, his men were beginning to put on their body armour and loading out, checking their weapons and rounds, flashbangs, flares, you name it, they had it. One man in particular stood out from the others. He was a man of Native American heritage. He was sat to the side of the dusty ground, sharpening his long hunting knife. Later it would turn out Hawk, as we came to know him by, would save Dee's life and almost lose his own. Monroe chuckled and laughed at the demands Dad had laid out. "Well, looks like you drive a hard deal, sir," he said. "But I tell you what, seeing as I like you boys, it's a deal. But on my terms. You follow our lead. You hear? I don't need you giving away our position before we're ready to cut the beast down to size. Do you understand? And my family, where will you take them?" asked Dad. "We have a base and safe house 30 miles of here. It's not much, but it's secure and habitable," said Monroe. "I give you my word, they will be safe and looked after properly. And before you ask, no, you cannot know who it is we work for. Just know that it's a government agency, and we have the experience with these dogmen," Monroe said with 2 fingers either side to highlight the emphasis of the word dogmen. Out of nowhere, Riz and Dee began laughing and slapping their legs at the man before them. "Ha ha ha! With all due respect, sir," said Dee, "but are you not concerned that you might fall in a puddle and drown? Shit! You must be all of 4 feet tall." "Ha ha ha!" laughed Dee, some of Monroe's men snickering and laughing under their breath. "You say you have done this before?" asked Dad. "Yes, down in New Mexico, sir," said Monroe. "We cleaned out a nesting spots of the mountains down there. The young'uns were attacking illegals and border agents. It was a mess, if I'm honest. We got the job done," said Monroe. "Okay. It looks like you have yourself a deal. As long as that money is here or in the account by this evening," said Dad, looking Monroe straight in his eyes as he did so. "Fantastic. That will not be an issue, sir. I'll see to it that it's there in a few hours. Now, might a few of my men start looking around the bordering field and tree lines? It would be a good idea to get some tripwires and explosives along the tree line and exterior of our immediate land around your house. We need to send an Alpha team out first to get some recon whilst it is still daylight hours. Is that going to be a problem? Asked Monroe. Dad nodded in agreement and sighed a heavy sigh. Yeah, get started. I'll be with you in a bit. Sure thing, sir. Take as long as you need. We will just get things moving out here, said Monroe. Then he turned and nodded to one of the men. Clearly a giant of a man, and I'm guessing he didn't even get that position under the terms of his intelligence. But anyway, we'll call him Buck. Mainly because, from what I heard of the man, he liked to say yeah. You get the idea. So the men started to move out, with some grouping up and heading into the forest direction, whilst the others split and began patrolling the perimeter and tree line. The afternoon passed quickly, and soon the sun was setting and evening approached. Where is the money, Monroe? Said Dad, clearly pissed off. It will be here, sir. Calm yourself and conserve your energy. You're going to need it, responded Monroe. It better, snapped Dad. We're going to have to learn to work with each other on this, dear sir. If you want to survive this shit and see your family again, that is, snapped back Monroe, but in a sly and overly polite manner. Ring, 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 ring. Monroe raises the phone to his ear and stared at Dad. Then, nodding. Wonderful news. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Excellent. Will do. Cheerio. The money is in your wife's account, sir, said Monroe. Dad, looking over at Mother to see her nod her head in agreement. Since you have been so wonderful to work with, if you will help us exterminate these creatures, on return, I will deposit another $50,000 in each of your accounts for your kind services. Oh, and of course, your silence on this terrible, terrible matter. I'm sure you understand why, said Monroe. My family, Mr. Monroe. You need to get them away from here now, said Dad. Yes, you're quite right, sir. Ready when you are. Then Dad called us over, and Uncle D and Riz grabbed our bags and bits and loaded them into the SUV. We said our goodbyes, and soon we were driving off down the large, long, dusty dirt road away from our house. Dad and the brothers fading further away into the distance. Mother and I, if I'm honest, were in pieces and didn't sleep a wink of sleep that night. Hell, any night after we left. From here on is what was told to me by Uncles Riz and D. As soon as sun was almost down, the surrounding areas once again fell into a chasm of silence. Only the odd chatter on a two-way receiver, or cuss from one of the men, because they'd stepped in cow shit. Anyway, before the sun had set, the other teams had dug huge trenches at the tree line and various points closer to the house, but they was far enough away not to damage it or them in any way. They had a series of explosive charges rigged in each trench, with tripwires along the grass and brush. Buck, leader of the beta team, gathered Dad and the brothers over at the SUV and kitted them out with body armour, weapons and ammo. Oh fuck, here, I almost forgot, said Buck, as he passed a box of Dragon's Breath ammunition. These bad boys will... Yeah, we already know, Buck. Light his ass up, said Dad and the brothers at the same time, then laughing. We're crazy, you know that, declared D to his brother and Dad. Yeah, I guess, said Dad with a nervous chuckle. As the final rays of light dropped across the rolling land in the far distance, and the silhouette trees took on a dark and mysterious atmosphere, the radio from the Alpha team came cutting through the silence that was now surrounding the farm like a vacuum effect or something. It was the Alpha team giving their estimated position and update to what they had encountered or found. Riz said you could feel electricity in the air, almost like nature itself knew tonight blood would be spilt, lives changed. Come in, Commander, come in. Do you read me? Go ahead, Corporal. What is your status? We're about 2 miles of your position. It's pretty dense in here, sir. A lot of thick brush and trees. Everyone is accounted for at present. Over. Monroe, raising his eyebrows at the brothers, and Dad continued. Any update on the hunting party? Over. Just a few backpacks and some ripped clothing. No blood though. About 1 mile in and above the ravine. Commander, sir. Apparently, Monroe had instructed Dad to pick out some dirty washing and give it to the men in Buck's beta team. The plan was to strategically place them around the field and tree line, hopefully to draw them in, where we could then draw fire on the Dogman that approached the bait. Then, by force, move them into the path of one of the explosives. When they did that, there would be an almighty boom. Dogman Doritos. Just then, a long and tremendous howl permeated the night from deep in the forest, followed by a crash as one of the beta team members dropped a box of supplies to the ground. Buck instantly grilling the rookie's ass for his noisy mistake. Uncle Riz thought it was because Buck just about jumped out of his own skin in front of everyone. It didn't go unnoticed. Before setting off, Dad, Riz and Dee sat at the old fire pit just like they had for so long. You boys, you don't have to do this, you know, said Dad. It's suicide is what it is. What choice do I have? He added. You men have a choice. A chance at something different to this nightmare. It's only going to end in blood. Mine or theirs. Dee, looking at his younger brother, now already a marked man in the Dogman's eyes, said, Yeah, man, we do have a choice. A chance at something new. Whatever. But that choice, as far as I'm concerned, is to put each one of those man-eaters to sleep for good. For your wife and the boy. Also, in case my ass of a younger brother has forgotten, I'll remind him. Once you piss that son of a bitch off or become of interest, he won't stop hunting you. Said Dee. Ha ha. Yeah, man. He always did like to roast his younger brother. I guess even as old men in their late 40s, he was still trying to toughen him up a little. Ha ha. Ah, brothers. Anyway. That is correct, my short as fuck older brother. Ha ha, said Riz. That is correct. But you know as much as I. He needs our help. Susan and Matt need our help. And I guess these hyped up city boys could help too. Said Dad. Do you trust them? Dee shaking his head instantly, Riz agreeing with him. Nope. There is something off about that Monroe. And Buck. Buck won't be a problem, added Dee, cutting his younger sibling off short. Okay. Well, we keep an eye on them. Stick together at all times. Absolutely, sir, said the brothers. Then let's do this, said Dad, and they all got up and grabbed their gear, heading off towards the tents that was now base for operations over by the SUV, each of them given a nod of its go time. As they crossed the front of the house, a distant pop went off. Just the one. Then a flare could be seen riding up into the clear night sky. Stars everywhere and a green flare filling and falling back down before extinguishing back to blackness. Ah, excellent, said Monroe. Alpha Team has located a body or something of great interest, but must be unable to get any signal in a ravine on the two-way. Dad, Riz and Dee looked at each other with a look of dread at what awaits them in there, in that deep, dark forest, in its home. Buck standing with Monroe like some fucking guard dog. Are we ready to go or what? Demanded Dad. Ha ha, yes, yes. We are good to go, old chap. Are you sure you and your men are up to the task? He said, with a sly grin on his pasty, pale face, eyes as devious as the Dogman's. Monroe did or said nothing. He just stood and stared. It was becoming apparent and clear dear Monroe had an issue or two, and only time would tell which way this would go. Dee, given as much thought and input to his posture and response to this clear challenge of egos, then said but one sentence before all hell broke loose between them. Monroe, one question, dog. Annabelle or Dianabole? Motherfucker! Monroe flew into a fit at this dig, clearly being a heavy user of steroids, but not the type to admit it. Yeah, D punched him straight in the fucking throat as he lunged at him. The throat. Oh, man. Anyway, where were we? Yes. So after D kicked Monroe's ass and sent Riz into a laughing fit for 10 minutes, even Dad laughed, the men made their way into the forest, down the trail to the ravine. From here onwards, it was nothing but pine trees for nearly 35 miles squared. A few lakes, but the entire area and further afield had vast systems of caves and tunnels. Dad and the brothers wondered if Monroe and his team knew about the caves. Just then, the signal to move out was given to the beta team, and Dad, Dee and Riz followed close behind. As they neared the tree line, another long, loud roar or howl left the forest darkness. A foreboding feeling sat in each man's stomach as the foliage and entire pitch-black forest consumed them, thick with thorny brush and branches obstructing their path. It was not quite the entrance they had hoped for even when the Alpha team had already made their way through, it was like the forest had regrown, ultimately consuming whoever dared to enter it. As the howling died out slowly, the men began walking again, trying their best not to trip or twist an ankle.
40 minutes in.
By now, they had reached the opening of the ravine, and ahead they could see the ground fall away, giving place to a long but equally wide sea of trees, a canopy of vast leaves covering the journey ahead. Beautiful as it was in the daytime, now it was night, and predators are hungrily looking for a meal. Everyone knew what was laying in wait for them. It was more of a matter of when rather than if. Hours later, after making slow progress through the thick brush, the men came to a clearing of sorts. "Any word from Alpha Team?" asked Dad. "Nothing since we left base," said Buck. "Okay, isn't that a little concerning?" asked Dad. "No, it probably just this damn ravine knocking out communications," said Buck. "Let's fucking hope so, eh?" said Dee. Riz and Dad both muttering to themselves and shaking their heads in disapproval, trudging on further into the immense forest, further from safety, further from home. It was approaching 11 or 12 at night by now, and still there was no word from the Alpha Team at all. Then they came upon an area of trees and brush that was flattened, and the bark on the trees stripped off in long shreds. Clearly the work of a four-clawed beast. The unsettling thing was, some of these markings were 8 or 10 feet up the trunks, and deep. "You seeing this, Monroe?" said Dad. "You know bears round here don't get big enough to do this," he added. Yes, I see that, sir. Let's keep moving until we meet up with Alpha Team. It shouldn't be much longer," said Monroe, sounding a little more concerned than before they had left. Further on, a few hundred meters or so, they discovered a small cave entrance. Not much of a cave by any cave standards, but clearly it was being used regularly by something large, something that would just about fit into the mouth of the cave. Prints and hair samples were taken. 2 prints, clearly with long claws, were at least 13 to 14 inches long and around 7 or 8 wide. Monroe sent one of the team to take a closer look at the entrance and just inside the cave. Instantly, the Native American beta team member Hawk immediately protested against this, but was silenced by Buck and sent to keep watch up ahead of the group. As the younger team member, Dan, I believe his name. Anyway, as Dan lowered himself into the mouth of that cave, there was a dull and heavy thump from within, followed by some smaller rocks or pebbles. Dan, face dropped as he hung half in and half out the cave. "What do you see, Private?" said Buck. There was a long pause. Only his harness and climbing gear could be heard creaking or rubbing against the cold, hard rock. Came this ground-shaking noise booming from the cave. Dan's little face pulled this squirming look of pure terror. "Ah!" he screamed as a loud footfall came crashing from the cave. As he madly tried to clamber and climb his way out of there was a crunch, followed by a wet tearing and Private Dan's screams. Next, as he was clinging by his hands and chin, also hooked as if trying to gain leverage out of that blackness, an enormous and long-fingered claw rose up above Dan's right shoulder and then came crashing down onto his shoulder, digging its claws under his collarbone. Then he disappeared. Gone. Just his dying screams fading as whatever grabbed him then proceeded to drag him down further into the inky blackness of the cave. Buck and a few others running over and sprayed a hail of bullets into the cave behind him. I seriously hope one put him out of his misery before that creature got its teeth into him. Poor sod. Just great, shouted Dee and Riz, followed by Dad. You might as well put on neon lights saying, "Feast, all you can eat, you lummox." They're going to hear that for miles. Now they know we're here. Dee was right. Those shots would have carried throughout the whole system, amplified by the cavernous cave. "Shut the hell up whining," said Buck. "Why don't you try and make me?" said Dee. And with that, Buck charged at Uncle Dee as if to spear him, but was met with Dee's favourite uppercut to his chin, losing a couple of teeth and, in the process, his consciousness. "Ha ha, slump." "Dumbass," laughed Riz. "Shut up," said his brother. All right, that's enough of that. Someone pick up his fat ass and get moving." "Now," said Monroe. Two guys rushed over and picked him up, dragging his feet behind as they all continued up the trail. Dad, Riz and Dee all looking at each other and shaking their heads. A while later, the terrain became very jagged and slippery, and the ravine walls closed in either side to a much more narrow path. Buck was back with the world and cussed under his breath at the embarrassing knockout. Dee, suddenly surveying the area ahead, stopped, then grabbed his brother's arm as he almost passed by. Dad, coming up behind, asked what was up. "This is an ambush point. Look at the walls either side. They're covered in scratches. Scratches from prey trying to flee an impossible predator, and in an even more impossible area of escape." "Shit! Hey, guys!" Dad called to the other men. As he did, one of the scouts from up ahead came rushing back, immediately reporting to Monroe and whispering in his ear. Monroe's face dropped 1,000 feet to the floor. Dad rushed over. "What is it?" he said. "We need to find another route through. This is clearly an ambush point, man," Dad screamed at Monroe. The other men now stopped awaiting order, looking up at each other and each side of the ravine and around the trees. "Some of Alpha Team's clothing and body parts were spotted about 500 metres up the trail," said Monroe to Dad, with a look of astonishment and worry painted on his face. Now he really got what was going on here. Now he realised this wasn't an ordinary pack of dogmen. No. Now he realised they were vicious, man-eating dogmen, a pack at that, and clearly they had foot soldiers and a leader in place. A true pack living in this deep wilderness of vast green. Dad, looking at Monroe, said, "You see? They ain't playing around up here. I heard the stories, but this pack, they are different. They are hunting out humans as food." Just then an almighty crash and roar broke the conversation as Dad looked over to see the young rookie being dragged down. Yes, down, back into the earth through a new created hole in the rocks and soil. His body like a ragdoll to whatever had hold of him. Then he was gone. There was a moment of blind panic as the beta team scrambled in all directions. Monroe, rigid with fear and firing off his weapon with his goddamn eyes closed. He ended up downing 3 of his own team as he sprayed and prayed until click, 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 empty. As he looked in horror at his scene of madness and amateur reactions, he turned to Dad and the brothers. Shit, it was an accident. You all see what happened, right, guys?" said Monroe, looking pasty and about ready to go home. Unknown to everyone, from behind Monroe, a pair of glinting eyes appeared from a small opening in the ravine wall. Then, long, black hairy arms with claws extended on each long bony finger wrapped around each of his legs before the horror flashed across his face, looking at Dad and the brothers, then his team, and just managing a strange meh sound before whoosh, He was dragged off his feet with a crack, down to his chin on the hard, unforgiving ground, and then pulled with a great force back into the opening in the ravine wall. His screams of pure fright in the chaos and flapping he did before, disappearing like the other. A small pocketbook fell from his jacket, landing near Riz. As he almost was gone, Buck put a bullet straight through his head. I guess as a pity on the poor man. There was a deep growl from within, as if the Dogman was annoyed that Buck had ruined its fun. A second or two later it was joined by more growling and a large roar or scream. The men all moved out, back in the direction they had came, back towards the farm. If they were quick, they could be there by sunup. It was around 1:45 a.m. now. They just had to keep moving. Even Buck wasn't complaining, which was strange. Then an almighty howl rang out through the pitch black forest. The nightmare was far from over. As they picked up pace, they started to hear branches and trees snapping and cracking off in the distance. Not far, but far enough to keep everyone moving at an abnormal pace. Sweat, dirt and blood clinging to their clothing as they're trudging back through the humid forest. A fog starting to rise in the early morning hours, making visibility very, very poor. Every sound, every crunch became a Dogman. Soon, they had made good ground, and the ravine was widening again. They came up on a slight hill as they were surrounding a long bend. They must have been at least a mile from the ambush site. Yet, as they walked around that bend one by one, they gasped, and then a couple even threw up. There, before them, was Alpha Team, and Monroe with his 3 murdered soldiers, all laying or impaled on various branches on different trees. Their heads with broken jaws gaping wide open, throats ripped out and devoured, legs of some again half eaten or half missing. The stomach of each man with a clean slice running down the stomach until his insides fell to the floor. "Just like Brett!" exclaimed Riz and D. Their friend who had thrown his bottle at the Dogman was found in a similar way, all except the bottle smashed into his mouth part. But still, textbook. "We must keep moving," said Dad. Buck still cleaning vomit off of his boot. "Agreed," said Buck. They pressed on, taking one last glance at the horrendous sight before them, some men still heaving at the smell and visual bloody buffet. It was now clear these creatures can easily move much quicker and still, whilst carrying a dead body from where the ambush had taken place, then managed to cut around the group of men and set up this parade of gore and set the level of intimidation to maximum. They had to get out, and fast. Maybe they can make it back and the bait charges will take them out, they thought. Just then, the howl came again. Still just one enormous and sternum-rattling, booming howl. It was apparently a sort of mix between a walrus and a wolf. There was also a human-like pitch to it as well. Either way, it made all of them start fast walking, some of them men breaking into a light jog. "Stick together! Stick together! You damn idiots!" screamed D. The men not listening soon disappeared round a slight bend. Then the gunshots started. The rest of the men running to catch up rounded the bend just in time to see one man being dragged up a large pine tree, the other on his knees facing them, a Dogman behind him with its hand wrapped over the top of his head. It was almost like this creature had waited for the men, Dad, Riz and D, to all round that corner and see just how powerful and terrifying it truly, truly is. It growled and snapped its jaws at the men. D took aim, as did his brother. Within seconds, the Dogman howled and pulled his squirming man's head clean off, throwing it to the grassy side of the trail like a discarded Big Mac. D and Riz opened fire simultaneously, hitting the target square in the chest. It paced back a few steps and then came charging for them. Just then, Hawk stepped in front of the men and charged the Dogman. The others could not believe what they were seeing. "No, no!" they shouted, as Hawk, and the Dogman just engaged. Hawk dropped and slid to his legs under the now jumping Dogman. In his slide, he pulled a long sword and in one fluid motion severed its right leg from its knee down. The Dogman howled in agony and came crashing down before scrambling to get up. It was too late, as Dad unloaded his 357 directly into its stomach and hind, the rest of the team keeping watch on the trees as Hawk then calmly walked over and raised his sword, and with a thwack, bringing his sword down across both of its forearms, slicing cleanly through the bone and muscle. With a final shot from Dad, and Hawk rammed his sword straight through the top of its skull with a messy wet slop. "It's done. Let's move now," said Hawk, and they all pressed on, now keeping a constant watch of the trees surrounding them. It was out there, just where? It was fast approaching 4:30 a.m. and they had covered good ground, but were losing men fast and exhaustion was taking its toll. As the men rounded one last bend in the dark forest trail, light could be seen like a tunnel ahead. It was the farm, and the dawning day sunlight was already beginning to raise across the safety of the farmland. "Look," said Dad. "The farm! We're going to make it," said Riz to his brother. Buck, now dragging his fat ass at the back, literally lit up like the sun himself when he see it. "My God, thank you, Jesus," he remarked. "We are far from out of the hot water, gentlemen. We still need to secure the farmhouse. Then we got to kill 'em. Let's hope they take those baits, and we piss them off enough to come back tonight. They have got to pay us a visit." "Yeah," said Dad, "but this time it's on our land, our home, on our terms." Wow. Hope you guys are enjoying this series as much as I have writing it. I'm absolutely overwhelmed with the feedback. I've tried to incorporate a few people's ideas there. Again, it still is an interactive series, and I feel we are coming to a finale, shall I say. So let's try and put through some final ideas for a big showdown, and we'll get that out in the next couple of days. As ever, guys, please do like and share and comment. And remember, if you're going for a hike or a hunt in a deep dark forest, check your ammo's correct, check the weather's going to be good, and above all, remember,
Be safe, not sorry.